All right, today we have something different for you. Today we're looking at Ministry of Lost Things, a Puzzle Tales series. Case 1, Lint Condition from Post Curious. This is a escape room type puzzle solving, deduction-y type game, etc. All right, so I'm going to try and do my best not to spoil it. There's going to be links down below we're going to start with my thoughts after the break. After that, we're going to move into some spoilers, and then I'm going to do a wrap up at the end. Again, links down below. That way you don't spoil anything that you don't want spoiled. All right, so let's hit that break and then get to my thoughts. All right, so before I get into my thoughts, I'm going to really quick kind of explain to you how the basics of the game works without really spoiling anything. So when you open up the box, you're going to get this little welcome letter in right here. That's going to kind of explain what's all going on. It's going to give you a website that you need to go to. It's going to give you a little number that you need to type in, and then that's going to start the game for you. So you do need an internet connection. We used my tablet right here for it, and that worked out really well. So once you put that in, it's going to say probably something like open transmission 1. Well, it did for this one because that's what we did. So then you're going to find the envelope that says transmission 1. It says do not open until instructed. It'll instruct you to open it. You're going to open it. It's going to have stuff in it. And then from there, you're going to look at the website, and it's going to want you to give it some form of answers or questions or something. Once you enter those in, you're going to submit it. If it's right, it's going to move you on to something else, and it'll give you information on there. If it's wrong, it'll tell you which fields are wrong, and then you got to try and figure it out. You're basically going to go until you get the final answer, and then the thing will tell you that you've won, etc. So that's the most I can basically tell you without spoiling exactly what's inside of how it plays. Just know, again, you need an internet connection in order to be able to put in the answers to move along into the next sections. So briefly, my thoughts before I get into anything spoiler. So we have done some escape room type games before. We've done an exit game. We've done all the holiday hijinks from Grand Gamers Guild. This one tested our mind a lot more than those. So that will kind of help give you an idea of the level of this one. This was one of the easier ones, if I remember correctly, on their little sheet. They don't quite have on here like the difficulty level that I'm seeing. But I do remember that was the reason why we grabbed one of this ones. It was a little bit lower on that scale. And there was times playing this that we kind of felt, dumb's a strong word, but definitely kind of lost. Like, what are we exactly supposed to do? Where are we supposed to, how we use this stuff? But it did a good job of, there's a section for hints on the website. So sometimes we get a hint. Sometimes we would just really focus and be able to get there. There was at no point in this game, I don't believe, that we ever felt like, how did they expect us to get that? There was sometimes that we had to get a bunch of hints in order to get there. But once we got there, we're like, all right, I can see how other people could have got here. There was never a point where we're like, wow, they really expected us to have knowledge that there's no way we would have had. No, all of it is contained in here. Everything that you do need to solve a puzzle is in this box, in those envelopes, how it goes about. You just have to figure out the proper ways of going about and figuring it out. So again, this one does say 14 and up, 1+ players, 2 to 3 hours. It definitely took us the 2 to 3 hours. It was probably closer to 2.5 for us. Like I said, we did use quite a few hints. 14 and up, I would say there is maybe something in here that you could conceive as a bit of a more mature content. The age range is always kind of up to the family themselves. I mean, the other reason this age range may be up there is because of the level and difficulty of the puzzles. And again, depending on how advanced your family and your child are, etc., they may get frustrated with some of the difficulties on here. That's, I think, kind of another reason for the age range. As for the player count, so we did play this one 3 players as a difference for us. We have done a couple of the holiday hijinks at 3 players as well. We grabbed the youth for it. They like these kind of escape room deduction games, so we wanted to have them experience it as well. And a lot of these games just seem like they're better suited for 1 to 2 players because A lot of times it ended up being one of the three of us was kind of sitting around as the other two were working on puzzles, or one person was kind of just staring at what they were working on and trying to help, but there wasn't many opportunities for like everyone to be involved on one thing. You usually kind of had to separate them out, etc. So I do think that three is the absolute max I would do, but more than likely we'd like to do them at two. That way we're kind of joint working on puzzles, or if there's a couple different puzzles, we can kind of each work on one, and one person's not sitting around there. I'll get into that a little bit more when I get into the kind of the spoilery type of items. But then the last thing I'll cover here in my thoughts before we get into those spoilery things, and I'll do it in a very broad sense, is that there is a story, there is a world that gets built in here. They do give you some background information on that and how everything plays, and I think it's really kind of a cool, interesting storyline element. I mean, I can just kind of read you the back of this because this isn't spoiler because it's literally on the box. You become a scout for the Ministry of Lost Things. Explore a parallel world of forgotten treasures and misplaced memories in this narrative tabletop puzzle adventure. Uncover secret messages, meet charming characters, and solve a tactile mystery to reunite a lost item with its human companion. So, like I said, to me, that feels really cool, the way that they built up that storyline. It also says it has 4 chapters, I'm assuming, because it does say like you could continue, so maybe you could stop after a chapter or 2. We didn't. We just muscled right on through. Alrighty, so I am now going to get into these spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Alright, spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, jump ahead now. Again, a link down below to where I wrap this up. All right, so spoilers is basically, I kind of went over the storyline, is you are a group of people who are trying to find lost objects and reunite them with their owners. So in this one, you are attempting to find this object and reunite it with its owner. So basically, initially, you're having to find the object, and then you have to find the owner. You do this again over 4 different chapters. So I'm not going to tell you right out how to solve these puzzles. I am not going to give you answers here, but basically as I'm describing these, it kind of gives you ideas of what the types of puzzles are. So if that is something you're interested in, and kind of how difficult we found them. So when you went into chapter 1, there was a couple of different decoding things, and then almost like a cryptogram where, like, there's symbols or letters, and you have to figure out what letter that corresponds to in order to fill them in, etc. So this was the one that we noticed the most, that basically 2 of us sat here while one person was doing something. So I don't know if it's because the youth was so excited at the beginning and they just kept grabbing everything and doing everything. But like, they basically solved the one thing and they moved on to the next one. So like Brian and I are kind of sitting here like, well, we can help. Can we see? Can we do something? So that was like the very first instance. So that kind of got it off to a rough start because like Brian and I weren't really enjoying ourselves initially. The youth was just running through doing things, etc. Those initial puzzles seemed pretty, not necessarily going to say easy, but definitely seemed a bit more straightforward. It was a nice way to start warming up your mind. Once you kind of thought through those definitely seemed to be one of the easier ones in the box, etc. Moving into Transmission 2. So Transmission 2 took the youth out of it. There is one of the puzzles included a bunch of pieces and etc. And that one, just the way that you had to go about doing things and maneuvering things, that is one that we had to use quite a few hints on because we couldn't figure out the order. This one did continue kind of what the first transmission did too, is that it seems like basically each transmission had like 2 to 3 different types of puzzles. So that's what I mean, like you could each work on one, but usually someone had to team up with someone, and then it kind of just seemed kind of odd. But so like while they were trying to work on the one puzzle, then Brian and I were working on the other one and manipulating that. And then this one did show that it's really cool that they utilize a bunch of different types of puzzles. Like you're not going to be getting a repeat or turns on different things. You're going to be having, you're going to be having logic puzzles, deduction puzzles, spatial puzzles, literally moving pieces around possible puzzles. So there is a very good blend of all the different types of puzzles in this. So like I said, the second one, we needed a bunch of clues for the one part, and then the other one we basically we were just couldn't figure out one part of it. So when we got to the clues of that, we're like, oh, all right, that makes sense. It's not something that normally happens with those types of puzzles, but we understood it, and then it made sense, like I said. Moving into Transmission 3, this one brought the youth back in because it had probably, I think they said, their favorite puzzle in the entire box. And I will admit, it was pretty cool. It really, surprising, it really, like, out to my estimation of how well they do with these, and based on the type of puzzle and how it was and how it got put together and how you solved it, etc. They did a very good job with that one, and that one did really impress me. The other part of this one did bog Bry down quite a bit, trying to figure out exactly, like, matching up something and figuring out certain things. And this is one that I think you did have to think a little bit more, not necessarily out there, but a little bit more expanded thought, and maybe a little bit more assumption and assuming things in order to get to the right answer on that puzzle. But overall, I think that Transmission 3 was probably our favorite out of the 4. Speaking of the fourth one did introduce a couple other different types of puzzles. And this set of puzzles is probably the one that I would say was the hardest. This is maybe one of the puzzles that by the time we got the answer, I was still trying to figure out, like, how exactly would you have figured that specific solution? I'm sure if I would have thought about it more and really analyzed it, I could have came up with it, but it is definitely the one that would be testing your brain the most and trying to figure it out. And then the other puzzle in this one is the one that I kind of alluded to with the possible mature content. So basically, you're walking around talking to characters in this story, and one of the areas that you are talking to them is basically insinuated, possibly show. It basically alludes to that it is some form of an adult club, strip club, gentleman club, etc. So that is like the slight mature content that I feel is in the game. But even that might be a little explained off, or you just don't let a younger kid that you don't want to see that element of it, etc. And then maybe you work on that puzzle while they don't. Then after you solve everything, you go ahead and you get a case conclusion envelope that's got some cool things inside of it. All right, let's go ahead and end the spoilers and get back into my final thoughts on this one. All right, so my final thoughts on this, without, again, spoiling anything, because I just spoiled everything. Well, I didn't spoil everything, but I gave my spoilery parts on it. This is one that it grew on me after we played it. While playing it and having that downtime between some of the puzzles and just kind of feeling dense and not really figuring it out, I wasn't happy at the end, but the more I sat and kind of thought about it, the more it was kind of like, you know what? No, I think if we were in the right mindset, I'm like, we could probably do this one. We definitely want to try and explore more of the games from Post Curious to kind of see if maybe we were just having a bad night, off night, etc. But I mean, they do a good job. All of the components in here felt really nice. Everything worked well together. The way that they laid everything out, the way that they took care to how certain components interact or certain components feel. And the one thing I didn't get into before is technically this is resettable. Certain pages have a little outline or a little drawing of a pencil on it, and they basically say, hey, we can reproduce these. So what's going to happen is, as long as you don't mess up anything else in the game and you only draw, write, do whatever on these things that have the pencil on them, at the end, there is a recharge kit. You basically can replace all of those things and then pass it on to someone else. After that point, I believe maybe you can print them up online to keep on passing it on if you want, but there's basically one recharge of the game in this box. So like I said, overall, the initial night, I was not pleased because, again, I just felt dense, but upon reflection, obviously it was just a me problem from the get-go, but upon reflection, I did feel that they did do a very good job with this game, and they do give you the information that you need. So as a game, it works out really well. As me as a person trying to play this, I didn't do so well. But like I said, we are interested in trying more things from Post Curious. So if you are interested in trying something like this, whether it be this one or one of the other ones, I'll include a link to their website down below so you can go ahead and check out those games. While you're down there, if you could go ahead and give us a like, a subscribe, a comment, a share, and ringing that bell. Let us know if you've played any of the Post Curious games and what your thoughts are on them. In addition to that, if you're looking to purchase games, we have a link to Miniature Market down below that will go ahead and take you there. And then if you make a purchase while using our link, we get a portion of the sales back to the channel. And finally, another way you can help us is if you are looking for a powdered energy drink, we have an option for you. It is called Dubby. All of your information is right here. You use that information, you use the code MEEPLES, you get a discount, we get a portion of sales to help fund us. So maybe we can go ahead and buy us another Post Curious game and cover it for you on the channel. Alrighty, so go out and be curious after